Journeys Ahead 2 Lineage Chapter 6 A Mad Pyros Christmas. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. As the sun began to slowly set below the horizon, the group of oddballs made their way into what was Aurora's pure Christmas-themed fairground. This had been a year-round attraction, with all sorts of rides and games that would be sure to give anyone a good time. Donned in their warmer clothes, Void and all those he knew from Earth entered through the fair's front gate, which had been decorated in wreaths and many Christmas lights. Behind them, Cor, Sika, Atlas, Evelyn, Harmony, Lee, and Joby followed. Yet, before entering, they all clicked a few buttons upon their arm plates, which turned their armor into sets of cozy civilian winter clothes. "Whoa! How did you guys do that?" Pofnu asked in awe, as both her and Harmony trotted along side by side. "Our armor was designed by Lady Matira herself. Apparently it comes from an older age of sparks that had supposedly been able to shapeshift. With these puppies, we can change our outfits to fit in anywhere." The pop star of a spark explained, as she now wore a bright pink winter jacket, along with blue pants, green boots, with an added white scarf nestled around her neck. "Yes, the armor is mainly used as protection when working with matter, but it is quite useful for other occasions, blending in with worlds being one of them." Cor added on, as both him and the other Sparks wore almost identical outfits to Harmony, main difference being their respective colors. "Wow, that actually seems pretty handy," Void said with astonishment, while Jida gently hobbled along by his side. "Configuration transformation? That's incredible!" Nock exclaimed with an adjustment in his glasses, as he admired the magical nature to the armor. "Not as incredible as the Thumper," Kyle remarked, as the water that was around his head began to grow colder by the minute. "Oh, please. That hunk of junk can fall apart at any given moment." Sarv gruffed out with a shiver as she and the others eyed the festive environment. The salty breeze mingled with the sweet scent of roasted chestnuts and hot cocoa, enticing all the visitors as they approached. Twinkling lights draped from the wooden beams of the pier illuminated the night with a soft and magical glow. Colorful ornaments hang from every corner, while cheerful music filled the air, inviting families and friends to gather and celebrate the joy of the season. A towering Christmas tree stood proudly within the center of the pier that was surrounded by all the rides and games, adorned with shimmering garlands and sparkling lights, serving as the centerpiece for holiday photos and cherished memories. Stalls lined the promenade, each offering unique holiday gifts, handmade crafts, and delicious seasonal treats. Local artists showcased their talents, selling everything from beautifully designed ornaments to cozy knitwear, perfect for keeping warm on a chilly winter night such as this. The scent of freshly baked pies and seasonal delicacies traveled through the air, while children and other Aurora residents delighted themselves in sugary, festive snacks. For the little ones, a charming carousel spun near the entrance, its colorful horses and twinkling lights adding to the enticing atmosphere. St. John, the Santa Claus of this Herb's version of the holiday, himself even made a special appearance, listening to children's wishes and posing for photos, bringing smiles and laughter to all who visited. The local choirs of Aurora sang with voices akin to that of angels. Cheers and cries ruptured from the many rides that looked to entice Joby and the other Sparks with holiday cheer. It was always a beautiful scene. Every year it appeared to get better and better. At least the blue-crested Spark. "Are you guys okay if me and Cora spend some brother time together?" Void asked back towards the others, as a gentle snowfall continued to descend upon their giddy heads. Yeah, totally, Jada replied, whilst narrowing her eyes upon Sika. Besides, I could use some advice from one soon-to-be mother to another, she added as the purple glow beneath her belly skin appeared to be a bit brighter than normal. Oh, of course. I can assure you, it's easier than teaching kids to flute. Sika exclaimed with glee as her, Jida, and Joby wanted to have a girls' night out per se. Wait a second. You know music? The guitarist asked in a sense of excitement. I do. You play anything? The Sparkette replied. I'm a guitarist and a radio station host. A struggling one, but hey. The last audible words the group could hear before the three of them disappeared into the crowd. Come on, Lee. Let's go ride some stuff. Harmony then shouted as she took the little spark by the arm and ran off into the crowd as well. You fellas want to get some grub? The food here is amazing. Tucker asked towards the others as Void and Core began to march off.
I can only drink liquids, but that hot cocoa smells delightful,
Evelyn faintly replied as the two Novasun brothers found themselves to at last be alone. So, Void began as he and his big bro walked with hands stuffed into their coat pockets. So, Core answered back as they both held a small grin upon their orb-headed faces. How have you been? A simple question Void gave, but a question that had not been asked for so long. Busy, Core answered, making Void scoff a bit in his stride. Pfft, seriously? We don't speak in 15 years, and you reply with the same thing as always? In the past, when the younger Spark would get home from school or training, he would always ask Core one question. How have you been? In which Core would reply the same way he had just now. Yep. What about you? I see your horns still haven't grown in. Slightly cringing towards the remark, Void tucked in his head a bit and turned his sights away from the bigger Spark. Void himself was still sensitive about his current form. He had not known why his horns refused to grow after all this time. It was always embarrassing when it had been brought up. Yep, still a late bloomer, I suppose, was the only thing Void could say, resulting in his brother giving him a slap to his back. Hey, no shame, little bro. The legends of Seraphim say that his horns didn't grow until he was in his 30s. It'll bloom in due time. Core tried to reason, hoping that it would lighten his brother's mood. Anywho, I'm actually rather curious. You say that you're a vigilante, correct? What has that been like? Sticking his head back out, Void thought on this question for a moment as the past 10 years came circling through his mind. Well, it's been bumpy, to be truthful. I wear a blue cloak to conceal my identity for a start. Void whispered in a chuckle, as the crowd around them was rather large. It's something me and Jida wear. We're sort of a tag team. The two of us have faced some of the strangest and most bizarre characters you could imagine. Void went on as he noticed that they were approaching a lookout that led to Aurora's large body of water that had now been frozen over for the most part. In the beginning, it was normal crooks, robbers, muggers, you know. Eventually, though, we came face to face with some rather peculiar individuals. Void elaborated as his face contorted into a mixed expression. There was a mob boss that ran an underground city drug trade. A porcupine, a woodland human as we call them, that had electricity powers. There's a mad scientist that is really obsessed with me for some reason, And how could I forget the pyromaniac who has mechanical wings and flamethrowers strapped to his arms? Void listed as a group of Lavin wolves ran on by, whilst having a snowball fight. Wow. Quite the interesting world you found yourself within then. I've never seen such unique looking faces now that you allude to it. I like it. Kor replied as he adjusted an orange scarf that now sat around his neck, while eyeing all the people around them. It's the only world that accepted me. Earth is my home now. I love it here. Void responded as the two brothers now stood before the ocean, watching as snow continued to fall, while the festive holiday lights danced off the waving reflections below. I'm glad. Maybe when all this is over, you can give me, Sika, Joby, hell, everyone a grand tour. Maybe Lady Matira would be interested. Kor suggested, making Void chuckle, and then slow his emotions as the questions from earlier came rushing back in. Kor, what Lady Matira is doing, what you guys have been working on, could it really bring back the sparks? Void questioned as he gave a blue shining side-eye to his brother. Yes. Would you believe me if I told you that there was even a chance it could revive the dead? With both of his eyebrows raising up, Void fully turned the gaze upon his brother with the most peculiar stare he had ever seen. How? He asked with brunt force to his tone. Simple. If we take the DNA strands from items once used, weapons, armor, belongings, and the like, there's a chance we could restore a spark's essence back into its natural state and mind. It's still a slim theory on everyone's behalf, but there's still a chance. Kor elaborated, leaving Void dumbstruck in place. Wait. So you're telling me we can both bring new sparks into the world along with possible old ones? Looking down with a campfire glow to his eyes, Kor nodded and turned his sights back to the ocean, looking to find comfort in its gaze. Anything is possible. But first, we gotta find and restore those conductors. Without them, we'll be set back another 15 years at most. Kor muttered with a nervous tone to his voice, which made Void perk up with a smirk. Well, I wouldn't be opposed to giving you a tour early if some of those batteries are in the area. Turning back around, Kor eyed his brother once more and cocked his head to the side. Are you saying that you wish to help? The older Novason inquired with a growing grin to his scarred face. If there's a possible chance to hug Mom and Dad again, then yes. Yes, I'm in. Void boasted to the excited reaction in Kor's face. Besides, my kid is gonna be born any day now. I think it would be good for them if there were some sparks around their age while growing up. I'm down all the way, big bro. To this, Kor couldn't help but extend a hand and rested upon his little brother's shoulder, feeling nothing but pride and hope. Your help would be greatly appreciated. In a world we don't understand, it could be all the beneficial. Kor said before smirking wide. Looks like the Novason brothers are back in business. Kor joked as he and Void gave each other a fist bump. Guess we are. Also, I've been meaning to ask. Void began anew while pointing at Kor's face. How'd you get that scar? Shouldn't that have healed by now? In response, Kor reached up and felt the damage that had been caused by his own actions, and then nodded his head. Simple. Before Kor could finish his sentence, there was a sudden eruption of flames from afar that made him, Void, and everyone in the area turn their heads towards the shocking sight. Burnt. Kor mumbled out as another ignition of flames arose. A collection of screams and wails arose from around the Winterfest. From every angle, it appeared suddenly a light of flame in a hellish haze. Panic quickly swept through the air, as tiny explosions of deadly infernos arose from the scene in both spectacular and devastating light. "What the hell?" Void shouted in a sudden panic, as several people, including the fake St. John, ran past him and Core, looking for cover. "What's going on?" The older Novason beckoned, when the Piers Center Christmas tree exploded into a fury of hellfire and flying ornaments. Spiraling through the air with a smoldering smoke trail came the tree's now flashing star that landed hard into the wooden dock before the brothers. Then arose a chuckle from the fire, as the one who had been causing all of this ruckus appeared like a flaming fallen angel. This person looked to be a steampunk aviator soaring through the fiery sky. His features were odd. Around the man's body was an old blue tattered fireman's uniform that was laced with smelted steel pads, ropes, cables, and all sorts of mechanical doohickeys. Lashed onto the man's back were customized fuel tanks that sprouted with intricate metal wings. Around the man's face was a customized gas mask, changed and welded with parts to make it look akin to an insect's face, a butterfly to be exact. The last and most deadly thing to be noted were the two massive flamethrowers lashed around the man's arms that sprayed mighty flames on par to water exiting a broken fire hydrant.
Merry Christmas.
The man shouted as he dropped two bombs from out of his flamethrower's underhalves. Napalm, the spark realized. "Get down!" Landing and sliding behind a large ride that flashed with green and red lights. Void and Core pressed their backs against its wall as the maniac continued to spray fire and melt the icy environment. "Cheers, Grace! Is that the pyromaniac you were talking about?" Core asked as he immediately began to think about his girlfriend and daughter. "Yep, he calls himself Morpho," Void replied just as his phone began to ring. Reaching into his pocket, the younger Novason took out his cell and answered, hearing Jida on the other end.
"Hey, you seeing this?"
She nervously asked, clearly out of breath. "Are you okay?" Void questioned first and foremost, as Core began to type into his arm.
"I'm fine. Zika and Jovi are too. What about you?"
Jida replied back as an explosion of flames roared past the opening Void and Core sat beside. "We're fine. Think you could maybe die down the flames a bit from the sidelines?" Void questioned as he peeked his head out to look upon the pyro that danced and waved his flames within the air.
"Way ahead of you."
Jida stayed back as Core spoke up. "Sparks, get as many civilians out of the park as you can. That's an order," he shouted as both sides hung up. "Say, you want to help me stop this guy?" Void nervously asked as the two brothers slowly stood up with shaken breaths. "Don't you need a cloak or something to hide your identity?" Core curiously inquired, making Void halt in place. "Spark, damn it. Yeah." Looking down to his flannel and basic dad attire clothes, Void thought for a moment about how he was going to approach the situation, until Core spoke up. "Here, let's see how this does." Reaching around, the older Novason took a chunk of his clothes and plucked it off. Within the light, this shred of cloth reverted back into its metal form, an orange piece of cybernetic steel that glinted and buzzed, which left Void curious. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Was planning on giving this to you anyway. If you wish to help us, you're going to need the protective gear to do so. Behold, enhanced armor crafted by the gods." With a smirk, Core tossed the orange piece of metal forwards and watched as it latched itself upon Void's chest. This Sparkborn armor allows for us to tap into powers only our inner souls carry within. With it, you can embrace your inner Sparkborn, as Lady Materia likes to say. In a flash of ocean blue, the orange piece of metal changed to that of a sapphire shade as it quickly began to mass shift and expand around Void's body, looking akin to a mixture of nanobots and spectral magic. Looking down at himself, Void watched as a new set of armor, akin to Core's and the rest of the Sparks, formed. A chiseled and faintly spark-ruined sketch chest plate covered his torso, which ended down in darker shades of cobalt. Around his legs formed a familiar darkened skin-tight armor that stretched down in the blue-black spark-crested boots. Void's shoulder spheres then began to illuminate into a bright neon blue glow along the palms of his hands. Forming under his chest crest appeared a line out of that same arrow drop shape, also glowing with a new blue power. Upon Void's waist formed a brown belt connected to a lower cloak half akin to the other Sparks. His arm plates now reflected the same armor as his torso, as all was at last settled into place, giving Void the best armor he had ever had the pleasure of wearing. Whoa! The Spark chuckled with both hands extended out. Wow, this feels... Before Void could finish talking, he watched Core transform his winter clothes back into his standard armor with a nod in his head. This armor can enhance us in many ways. As for the power you hold within, only you can activate it. With a sudden ray of light, Core's body panel lines, eyes, and even his scar illuminated with a yellow-orange glow that left Void taken aback. Whoa! Wait, is that light matter? He asked as the outline of Core's metal heart bloomed faintly beneath his chest. Indeed, was all he replied with, leaving Void to look again at his glowing blue hands. Okay, alright, let's do this. Jerking his head down, Void deployed his mother's battle helmet, as Core did the same with his own. Now side by side, the both of them marched back out onto the scorching pier and stared down Morpho, who turned back and gazed upon the Sparks.
Bullets?
He asked with a flap in his mechanical wings, feeling puzzled if this had been the same vigilante that had locked him up many times in the past. Morpho then questioned, even more puzzled by Core's sudden appearance. Stand down, Morpho. The cops are more than likely already on their way. You already know how this is going to end. Void called as his new blue surge of power suddenly buzzed up his arms in a short electrical current, leaving him suddenly surprised. Why the hell are you burning down a Christmas festival? Core demanded to know, as his light matter energy looked to pollinate off his body.
My flames quench back against the frozen embrace of winter. They burn eternal, and all will hear their roar.
Morpho replied with a muffled tone leaving through his mask, making Core a bit uneasy to his words. Well, he seems sane in the head, he whispered down the void. You have no idea. With a jerking motion, Morpho turned his body around and threw another grenade of napalm. Flying through the air, this tiny capsule of destruction landed and erupted to life upon a large, reindeer-themed roller coaster, one with several people still trapped and riding upon its rails. Morpho called again, as the sounds of police sirens, ambulances, and fire trucks arose within the distance. Before the brothers could even make an attempt to fight, Morpho, with an exhaust in his wings, took to the sky and disappeared into the night, leaving only one problem on the scene: the people on the roller coaster. "Spark, damn it! Did he just..." Core asked, as a series of screams and creaks came from the massive ride that was quickly rising in flames. "Doesn't matter! Come on!" Void warily exclaimed as he turned heel and approached the roller coaster, now with Core close behind. "Help the carts below! I'll get the ones at the top!" Void commanded as he summoned his wings and flapped upwards to the highest rail. Below, Core nodded his head and leapt forwards with a golden shining light matter power pulse. With everyone else occupied with evacuation, it would appear Core and Void were the only hope for these folks until the law and fire department arrived. Soaring up and over, Void watched in dread as one of the coaster carts began to near a burnt and charred away drop point. The people inside were panicked, a mix of all kinds of humans that made them all look akin to the candy stationed next to one another. Dissolving his wings, Void landed upon the ride's guardrail side and did his best to not let his fear of heights get the better of him. Throwing out an overrune, he set the magic spell down and upon the machine's wheels, slowing the contraption just before it could reach the ledge. "Hang on!" Void screamed as he activated a Nova Blade and sliced away at the first cart's restrainer bar. "You're gonna be okay!" Reaching a metallic hand out, Void took hold of a Bullhorn girl's winter mitt and quickly pulled her free. Yet, before another could be saved, the rune's power faded, leaving the ride to lurch forwards and plummet downwards. "Scrap!" Void wordily shouted out as he shot his left arm forwards and snagged the massive hunk of conjoined metal. With all of his might, Void began to slowly pull the panicked people back up, but at an awkward and curved formation. The Spark wasn't sure as to how he was going to pull off this kind of rescue. It was a whole miniature train with flames rapidly growing from all around. It didn't help that the environment was frosted over too, leaving his stance rather slippery. Suddenly from below arose not one, but several pairs of glowing light matter energy tendrils. Turning his head downwards, Void watched in amazement as Core, using both of his arms, released a powerful essence that easily began to pull the machine down to safer ground. It was a form of movable but condensed energy, spark essence as a slime taken form. It was oddly gross, but at the same time, spectacular. Looking back up through his helmet, Core nodded his head before pointing to another speeding cart a few yards off. "I got them! Go!" The much larger Spark exclaimed, leaving Void the nod and make his next move. Using his horns, Void pulls himself up and over the ledge and landed upon the next cart's front half. In shock, the people inside looked upwards upon Void as he quickly shot both of his arms out and lashed them upon the nearby guardrails. Digging his heels into the coaster's front, deer-shaped head, Void began to slow the hunk of junk down, as it too neared a burning inferno. Squinting and sweating behind the mask, Void pushed back with all of his might as he began to feel something unexpected. The more Void strained himself, the more he began to feel a tingly surge of power arising from his heart. As they neared closer and closer to the flames, Void suddenly felt himself release a surge of burning blue electricity. It was a pulse of some kind of spark essence that halted the gears and servos within the coaster's motor system. Right as they neared the flames, the machine fully stopped and released the seat's restraints from the passengers. "Whoa! What was that?" Void asked, watching as one by one, the riders left their seats and descended down a nearby safety ladder. Retracting his arms, Void looked to his hands and watched as his newfound ability buzzed and fizzled up into the air. That was electricity, he told himself, before all hell broke loose. Suddenly from overhead, a third and final train cart roared by, but suddenly gave way due to the burning and melting metal from all around. With a collection of screams overhead, Void watched in horror as the carts fell in unison, but in the shape of a curving snake. Along with it, tons of debris and metallic chunks came crashing and pinning Void down. Gasping in shock, and now being forced upon his stomach, Void, still with concern for the civilians, extended both of his arms out and caught the train's carts, right before they fell into a rising pit of fire. I have you! Void groaned out as he stared into the worried faces of the riders. With all the strength he could muster, Void began to pull the people back up. Even when trapped underneath smoldering and burning rubble, the spark refused to let go. Don't worry! Void cried as the heat began to rise in an intense manner at his sides. The weight and pain upon his back was making him weak. His retracting arms both slowed and stuttered in pace, while electrical volts buzzed up and down his body, responding to the stress that was tearing him down. I have... He tried to repeat, but gasped in dismay as the platform he was trapped upon began to break away. With a downward shift, Void nearly lost his focus and strength, causing the carts to lower even further. Looking upon everyone with strained eyes, Void began to panic, realizing that he wasn't going to be able to lift them back up. It would appear that passengers knew this too. Void weakly gasped out when once again, Core came to the rescue. With a sudden weight being lifted off his shoulders, Core, with his light matter powers, lifted and threw the broken debris off Void. As his mucky, golden glowing tendrils did as such, he too extended his arms down and took hold of the carts, and then began to help Void pull. We have you! The older Novison cried, as Void found his strength returning. Pull! He bellowed. Together, both Void and Core took the carts and raised them up and back to ground rail level. Using his light matter, Core quickly took each passenger out one by one and hoisted them into the air and away from danger. Once everyone was accounted for, the brothers began to feel the platform beneath begin to give way again, giving them both the same mindset. I think this thing is coming apart! Void shouted as he summoned his glowing blue wings. You think? Core asked as he did the same, revealing a pair that shimmered orange. With another audible creak and sway, the two brothers nodded their heads and leapt off the coaster. As they began to drift back down the ground level, the entire contraption from behind came crashing down, all into a heap of burning metal, wood, and machinery. As the two landed to the sounds of cheering civilians, Core slowly set the people down and retracted his energy. Hunching over, Void kept his mask on, but breathed heavily, all the while hearing the faint thank yous coming from all around. Not bad, Blue Bullet. Core complimented as he too hunched and caught his breath. You kidding? You did all the work. Void gasped out as his steady breathing came back to him. Nah, you saved them first and foremost. Mom and Dad would have been so proud of you. Core said as he held out his hand and gestured for a fist bump. Us. They'd be proud of us. Void corrected as he returned the gesture as at last the fire department arrived. As the dust fully settled, with the fires at last being put out, Void and the others now all reunited and rested out in a secluded spot. This area was away from all the normal civilians, which in truth was just behind a lot of fire trucks and ambulances. With their helmets off, the Noah-san brothers took a few swigs of well-needed water, as their loved ones rested beside them, trying to comprehend what had just happened. That was insane. You sure you guys are alright? Jada asked as she brushed off some ash from Void's stellar new armor. We're fine. Just a little shaken. Void replied as Pofnu snuggled up beside him being thankful that he was okay. Friggin' Morpho. I swear, he's the worst one out of all those damn crooks you two have thrown in the slammer. Sarv ranted in annoyance as she and Jet brushed off some of the sparks, who had bravely escorted civilians to safety. New look? Tucker then asked, as everyone eyed Void's brand new armor. Yeah, I guess I match with everyone else now. The blue spark replied with a chuckle, while wiping down his brow in a sweat. Yep. Void here says that he wants to help us. Primarily the search for the conductors. So, I gave him an upgrade. Core explained with a pat to Void's back, making the others nod, and for Jida the grin. Oh, well, I for one really like the look. Especially its more defining features. She teased while eyeing down the outline of Void's pecs that were pressed up against the armor from underneath. Okay, not here, not now. Void nervously mumbled, leaving Jai to laugh and then tiredly rest her head upon his shoulder. What kind of powers did it unlock? Harmony then questioned with a raise in her eyebrow, leaving Void to look at his hands and thought. Some kind of electricity. I don't know for certain, but it helped for a moment out there. Void cautiously responded as he began to reflect upon his new ability. Electricity? Wait, is that the power thing you were referring to, Sika? Jada asked, recalling a conversation no one else besides them had discussed a few minutes before the attack. The soul thing? Oh, yeah. She replied, while Joby sat nervously asleep in her arms. Electricity powers? Can we see it? Ka inquired, as Nock curiously examined Void's new armor pattern. Yeah, show us! None of us have electricity abilities. Alice chimed in, as Void awkwardly sat and thought. I would, but I still don't really know how to properly use it. You know? The spark replied, leaving Jida to speak up. Oh, you'll figure it out. I know you will. To this, Void couldn't help but smile. Jida had always been his reason in confusing times. In a way, she was as though to be the spark's other half. Two sides of one coin, per se. Also, you're gonna go help find the conductors? She continued on. Yeah, so long as I can check in on you every now and then. Void tiredly replied with a side eye to his fellow people. Yeah, of course. What do you take us for? Business monsters? Core asked, making everyone chuckle in place. That was until a voice arose. Nova-san! Turning their heads up, Void and the others set their sights upon a blue-skinned human, a cop, Sangston, approaching with wild eyes. Oh, hey Matt. Void called with a smile. Void, where have you been? I've been trying to contact you all day. The good cop boasted as he marched up in a winter law enforced garment. Sangston had on a fat black coat with matching pants, boots, and a beanie. Today has been utter chaos. Not only did a giant satellite, something UFO-looking thing come out of the sky and suddenly disappear, there have been several breakouts in the prison, one of which making his trigger-happy way here and... Fully stopping, Sangston glanced from Void and then to the other sparks, going back and forth for a good 30 seconds or so. I'm sorry. Am I going mad, or is there more of you? The officer questioned, leaving all the sparks to awkwardly wave. Sup? Alex greeted, while waving with his front right leg, to Sangston's absolute silence.